In today's video, we're going to dive into the upcoming weather pattern. We still have about a week to go of very cold temperatures. However, things are going to warm up over the final week of February and into the beginning of March. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, we have a massive snowstorm approaching for states like North Carolina and Virginia, and the models are hinting at more storms after that for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We'll be discussing that today. And let's go ahead and dive into things. The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, which covers February 23rd through 27th, has shifted even further east with the warmth, just as I predicted. And I thought yesterday's outlooks were a bit too reserved with the warmth. We'll still see some cold lingering during this time period, but we'll see in a second when we look at the 8 to 14 day forecast, it'll be completely cleared out. We do see a drier pattern over the south, which is typical during La Nina. So it makes sense that we're getting a shutdown pattern there with storms mostly moving through the north, along with a few southern storms passing through Florida. Now, looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, which is for February 25th through March 3rd, it's in line with what I mentioned earlier. The warmth is pushing onto the East Coast for this time frame, and I think it will even be warmer than this outlook shows. I also think we might see a colder pocket in the Northwest, creating a negative PNA, so expect warmer conditions in the east than what's shown here and cooler temperatures in the Northwest. Time will tell. As for precipitation, the Southwest will remain dry, but we'll see more storms diving into the Northwest and plenty of storms moving across the North. The Southeast should have near normal conditions, so expect several storms bringing rainfall and thunderstorms. As I mentioned earlier, there will still be snow threats for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Now, looking at the past 14 to 15 days from February 2nd to the 17th, we can see some warmth in the southeast, but the cold is beginning to move in. We're looking at past data, so we're watching this evolve. Once this week is over, we'll see a large area of colder temperatures in the yellow and orange regions, especially in the northeast. Once it's all said and done, we'll see a warming trend across the west. Let's take a look at the European model. We see the storm already forming in the west. I'm making this video around 10 p.m., so it's a late night special. The low is already forming near New Mexico with some snow showers across the plains and Midwest. As a result, the model guidance is starting to incorporate actual storm data, which should increase its accuracy. This is a critical point in the forecast as the storm is forming in the west. We'll get a better idea of what to expect moving forward, so we can expect the model runs tonight to show either a shift or something similar with greater confidence in the forecast. The short-range models, such as the ZRZ guidance, are already showing pretty similar patterns with a slight southern trend. I'm still eyeing the same area as we move into tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday, February 18th. By then, the storm will be almost fully formed with the low moving over eastern Texas. Snowfall will affect areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, as we discussed yesterday. Moving into Wednesday afternoon around 1 p.m., we'll see snowfall beginning for states like West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, northern North Carolina, and the southern two-thirds of Virginia. The snow could even start earlier, so I've been keeping a close eye on the timing. As you know, I live in this area, so it's something I'm particularly focused on. Now, I have an exciting vlog coming up about this, even bigger than the January storm, so stay tuned for that. For now, we expect snow to start in coastal areas around 10 or 11 a.m., lasting through the night with many hours of snowfall. By 4 p.m., the snow will be heavier, continuing through 7 p.m. and even 10 p.m., with snow still coming down heavily at 1 a.m. That's around 12 hours of snowfall, and by 4 a.m., it should begin to lighten up, continuing through 7 a.m. The interesting thing is that these models are trending toward more snow in Ohio, West Virginia, Western Virginia, and Kentucky, And these areas could see another inch or two on Thursday, potentially adding up to 4 to 6 inches or even 10 inches. This extra snow is crucial because snow plowing will have already been done and crews will need to continue working on the roads through the following day. After the storm, it will be very cold on Friday, February 21st and Saturday, February 22nd. By the 22nd or 23rd, we may see a weak snow shower system for the mid-Atlantic and southern New England. We're about 5 days away from this, so take it with a grain of salt. Models are also showing a potential clipper system working its way down into the Midwest around the 26th, wrapping around into the Northeast. The Mid-Atlantic and Northeast will likely see some snowfall around the 26th, with the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley getting snow mostly early on the 27th. There's potential for snow in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast during this time, so we'll be watching the 25th through 27th very closely as we get a brief stint of very cold Arctic air along the eastern seaboard. The ingredients for a snowstorm are there. We just haven't baked the cake yet, if that makes sense. The ingredients are on the table, but we need to get much closer before we can even think about putting it in the oven. We're expecting a clipper pattern to prevail, with a Canadian system working its way into the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, bringing another shot of cold air around March 1st. After that, we could move into a cold west, warm east pattern where we'll see a deep surge of Arctic air in the west. By the way, my take on the upcoming pattern differs a bit from this. I think we'll move into this setup earlier in the last 3 or 4 days of February, but I could be wrong. As for the storm developing on the 26th, the GFS model is showing strong storms with a cold front and warm front, which would bring snow to the Midwest and plains. You heard me mention this yesterday. The models have been trending towards storms like this that bring major snowfall to the plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes before dissipating. I'm a little skeptical, and you should be too, especially since this forecast is 360 hours out. We also see a good shot for severe weather if this type of storm develops. The most significant aspect of this forecast is the potential for severe weather across the plains, with a surge of warmth to the east and cold to the west. Keep an eye out for more severe weather events like we saw about a week ago in the Deep South. The models are suggesting a slight risk or even an enhanced risk of severe weather. So if early March follows this pattern, be prepared for that. Looking at the GFS model, the storm seems to track a little further north, with snow flourishing over southern Virginia and mixing near the North Carolina-Virginia border. The GFS model shows much higher snow totals for southeastern Virginia, nearly a foot or more, while the European model is a little weaker, showing 6 to 8 inches at most, with widespread totals of 4 to 7 inches in southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. The GFS appears to be the more impactful model, just a little more north than the European model. Snow showers will continue moving into the region on Thursday, possibly adding another half inch to an inch or two, which would increase total snow amounts as the storm progresses. As we move into the warmer trend, we'll still see a system affecting the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast on the 25th and 26th. This won't be as big of an Arctic blast, but the storm on the 28th and 29th will be much more significant. We see a major low forming near New York City, though the models have really struggled with this type of system this year. Right now, the models show it over the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, but the big question is whether it will track as shown or shift to a different location. We've seen huge shifts in the models this year, even compared to previous years. Just a week ago, all the major models showed the Northeast getting heavy snow, and now we're talking about North Carolina and Virginia. The storms this year are moving around a lot, making it hard to pin things down. That being said, if you're in this area, you could see snow around the 27th to 28th, but it's still hard to say for sure because of how much the models have shifted. The key takeaway here is that we know a storm is likely to form in the 25th to 27th to 28th time frame, and it'll be cold. That's the most we can confirm right now. When we look at specific days like Sunday the 23rd, we can tell that there won't be deep Arctic air or a major snowstorm up the East Coast. So it's not just guessing. If we know the potential date for a storm and the cold air is in place, that's when we expect things to develop. Moving into late February, the 28th, 29th, and March 1st could bring another coastal low, possibly leading to a more active period. There's also a storm around March 4th to 5th, with some thunderstorm activity in the deep south. The models have shown this type of storm in the long range before, but it hasn't always panned out. So I'm a bit skeptical, and you should be too. Looking at the European model, we see precipitation near normal or slightly below normal in the east, with above normal precipitation in the northwest. For snowfall, the European model shows a swath of snow, especially from the 18 Zulu run, though there are still big question marks regarding the validity of this forecast. It's been a tough year for predicting snowfall, but these areas will likely get their fair share. The Mid-Atlantic area, for example, could see a foot of snow in some places, according to the European model. Our next video update will be tomorrow morning, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. There's also a slight chance that we'll go live tomorrow, so stay tuned.